Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. I am going live later tonight than I normally do, so thank you for bearing with me as today has been a full day. I think I mentioned earlier this morning. It's just been a crazy couple of days, and this morning I ended up going live later than I normally do, and tonight I'm going live later than I normally do as well. So here I am, and just grateful, grateful even just tonight to be taking this moment with you. It's so important for me every single time I come on to do a show to take a moment and just literally take a breath. And I actually mean that quite literally. Just before I came on here, I closed my eyes and just took a deep breath, because what's so easy is for you and I to execute on areas of our life that eventually, because we do it so often, it becomes mundane. We're over 200 days of doing this show together. And in that process, it's easy to become ordinary, mundane. It's easy to take things for granted, take people for granted, take opportunities for granted. And as I was hopping on tonight, just taking that moment to pause and literally take a breath, it just brings us here in this moment and like, oh, yeah, right here, right now. And what a blessing that is. What a blessing it is to be alive, to take stock of the moment which we find ourselves in. Dub styles, perfect timing always. Like that's actually so much of what we're going to be talking about tonight is how do I know if I'm on the right track? And this question of timing is something that is one of the hallmarks, one of the indicators of whether I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And one of those is timing. And this morning, while we were talking about A Course in Miracles, I switched up my schedule a little bit this morning. I went to bed late last night. I started a 61-day challenge for myself and others. I just welcomed folks to join us. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. And this morning I went, I went to bed late last night. This morning I woke up a little bit later, but I got vertically aligned first before I did the morning show. And what I read this morning and wrote about this morning, what I felt like I was learning, I get on the morning show and I'm reading through today's Course in Miracles, and I just was in real time, like kind of started laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I wrote about this morning. And so, as we're talking about this question tonight of how do we know if we're on the right track, there's indicators in our life that show us and reflect back to us when we're on the right track or not. And I'm gonna be just musing on a few that have been meaningful to me recently, but I'd love to hear from you all in the chat. What has been good signs for you, like, oh wow, I'm really on the right track? That was validation, that was affirmation this morning. It was this moment literally live with you guys where I was like, wow, I obeyed. I did what I was supposed to do this morning. And sometimes it does feel like obedience, like I actually feel prompted, like I'm supposed to do something, and if I don't do it, I'm actually moving out of alignment. Other times it's like, oh, I just feel like I have an inkling I'm going to move in this direction and I hope it's right. So there's different modes of action that can result in different validation or affirmation that, yes, I'm on the right track. And sometimes, yes, it is stepping in with kind of like this hope that, all right, man, I actually feel like I'm supposed to be doing this. And if I don't do it, I'm not obeying. I'm not obeying the voice within. Other times it's kind of that shot in the dark, but I'm like, okay, I hope I'm going in the right direction. So I'd love to hear from you guys what it is that comes to mind. What are indicators that you're on the right track? And before I keep going, just jumping here in the chat to say hello. Some guy, thank you for coming on here. TR the star, we're chatting about how do we know if we're on the right track. That's what we're doing here on the show specifically tonight, but the show in general, the Knowing Show, is about the cultivation of our entire selves, our mind, our soul, so our intellectual intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our spirit, our body, every part of us, so that we live so much more fully. And y'all, now is the time to be doing this, especially in the age of AI. We had a very well-regarded AI expert on here the other day talking about emotional intelligence and the integration of AI and how it's all kind of working together. Y'all, our being, our inner world is really the greatest differentiator between us and these bots that are coming in and taking a lot of jobs. It's just we're kind of engaging in this really radical world. It's this wild frontier that we don't know what's going to happen. And that's not meant to induce fear. What it's meant to do is, well, what can we take responsibility on? And we can take responsibility in coming to know who we are. And we are our own greatest assets. So, with that, that's what we do here on the show. Good to see you. I'm so glad you're back. It has been a little while, so I'm glad you're here. Brian, synchronicities when they're when they're more common. So I asked everybody in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you. What are signs for you that you're on the right track in your life? And Brian C says synchronicities when they're more common. I believe you're aligned when you're supposed to where you're supposed to go. And I'd love to hear, Brian, when you say synchronicities, is it with other people? Or is it more so kind of like that moment this morning that I had where I was like, oh my gosh, I was just writing and like literally writing my journal about this. I hop on and then I read from A Course in Miracles, and that's what it was. So I'd love to hear about that from you. Gray, 5857. Hi from Canada. Hello. Abdu, good to see you. Thanks for coming on here. And y'all, just so you know, I do read these chats. I do skip ones that don't that go in a direction that I'm not trying to go in the direction with the show. So ones that just sometimes get a little bit inappropriate. I don't read those, but I would love to engage with you if you wanna chat. Gustavo, Dean Hayes. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question, but I do love films. Randy Lowry, thank you for coming on here. Good morning. No, good evening. It is not morning. You said oscillate between 410 and 610. I don't know what you mean by that. Unautrine core. Tell me what you mean by that. I'm curious about the oscillation for mental health. Dub Styles, my gut is always my best indicator of my path. Dub Styles, I love this, and I'd love to hear from you when you say your gut. Like, how does the gut manifest for you? So, because people will say, like, I think with my gut, I'm being led by my gut. The gut is what is it? The second brain. And I'd love to know, like, for you, what does that look like? How do you do that? And how does it show up? Is it a feeling? Gray, I'm trying to think more positively. I love that. That is so, man, we have so much control over our minds. And really, truly, isn't that such a good indicator? So for me, when I'm thinking about how do I know if I'm basically in alignment, how do I know that I'm on the right track? So I think of it as who I want to be, where I want to go, and how I want to get there. Each one of those has a part to play in terms of kind of the targets I set for my life. And like, let's think of it as bowling pins in an alley. So who I want to be, where I'm going, and then how I get there. All of that kind of informs the targets in the bowling alley, but then also the lane itself. So like how I get there, the modality and vehicle of achieving those goals. And when I think about how do I know if I'm on the right track, am I actually bowling in my lane or am I bowling in somebody else's lane? This whole concept that Gray just mentioned around thinking positively, that for me is actually an indicator that, man, I'm actually going to be that much more focused, because if I'm starting to get really, really negative, usually that means that I'm looking at someone else's alley. It means that I'm not present here in this moment. I'm thinking about the future. I'm in the past. So I'm actually not here in my own alley at this moment. Because if so, there's so many reasons. Even today, I was actually on a walk and I actually apologized to my partner. I was like, you know what? I'm sorry I wasn't being more grateful right now. There's so many reasons to be grateful. And immediately that changed the entire environment of our walk. And then also when we came back to the house. And so there is so much opportunity to take control of our bowling alley, of the bowling pins that we're aiming for, of the manner in which we're actually trying to achieve our goals. And we have so much power when we're in our lane, when we're staying aligned, and when we're in the present moment, rather than living in the past, living in the future, looking at somebody else and seeing what they're doing, looking at, just the big old world. It's so overwhelming, and there's so little that we can actually do to make such a big, colossal, global shift with some of the things that are upsetting to us. So, what am I called to do? Why am I here? Getting clarity on that. And then to that point of how do I know I'm on the right path? Am I actually having the way that I show up right here, right now, be in alignment with who I want to be? So, positive thinking, that's a pretty big one. That's a very big one that can indicate whether I'm actually on the right track or not. So, I appreciate, great, that you said that, and I'm curious. I know I had asked you, Dub Styles, about the gut, so I just want to scroll down and see if I can see that. Oh no, I think I lost it. Oh, I'm sorry. Dub Styles said a really, really good one about trusting the gut, which is so, so, so important. Um, and then I'm just scrolling back up because there was another one. That was really good. Synchronicities, from Brian. I love that. Y'all, you know what I realized? I realized that eventually I lose all of the chats. So I actually am I need to figure out how I can save them permanently, but I'm actually going to come over here and open a Word document live here with you so that I can save these chats so that they don't disappear before I get to read them. So hopefully I'll be able to save these and look at these later now, because I'm saving them in real time. So woohoo. Okay. I'm just coming back here. Sorry if I was a little wonky there. One of the things, as I was thinking about this show and thinking about this topic of how do I know I'm on the right track, synchronicities, Brian, you already called that out. That's a big one. Even just this morning, it was like, oh, I'm being led, and I'm also listening to the right voice, because sometimes it is confusing. It's like, is that my voice? Is that the voice of, honestly, is it the voice of pop culture? Is it the voice of my parents? Is it the voice of what everyone else wants me to do? Or is that actually genuinely coming from within? And so then when we start seeing the synchronicities around us, to Brian's point, that is a sign for me of, okay, I actually am on the right track. There's validation and affirmation externally of how I'm feeling led internally. And when we start seeing those, it's kind of like the nodding of the head, and it's like, okay, like, cool, I'm on the right track. I'm in alignment. And then to Dub Styles' point about the gut, that's another one for me where, man, if I am experiencing, and this is where both Gray and Dub Styles are kind of touching on this point around peace and positivity, and then also trusting the gut. It's like the gut will actually be an alert. And the way that manifests literally is in my body. Like, I'll feel queasy in my stomach, my chest will tighten, I'll sometimes even get tightness in the throat, and I'm like, something's wrong. I need to slow down, lean into that sensation wherever it is, and then ask why. What is happening? And those 3 steps, slow down, lean in, and ask why, have been so, so, so helpful for me to understand, where am I acting out of alignment? Where am I potentially about to go out of alignment to, I haven't gone out of alignment yet, but something's starting to be wrong. And then where also is somebody else's almost like coming into my bowling alley lane, and I need to say, hey, get out. This isn't right. So sometimes this is what's really interesting, y'all. And I actually haven't thought about this until now. I can actually be in alignment, but then somebody else is coming in, and it's like, oh, you're not supposed to be here right now. Like, this isn't right. Now I'm effectively out of alignment simply because I'm engaging with you, and I'm not supposed to be doing that right now. So this is an interesting, I feel like this just got a little bit meta, and I don't want to get too granular, but we think about like the y-axis and the z-axis of like living vertically lined, engaging with people horizontally, and like we're all kind of doing what we're supposed to do. But then if there's somebody that comes, like, that's the X or the Z axis that comes in from the back, and it's like, wow, where is this person coming from? And I think that I've experienced that, and I'm sure you guys have too, where it's like somebody sends a text message or somebody gives you a call, and it just throws you off completely because you're vertically aligned, you're good, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Horizontally, what you're doing physically in the external world, because vertically is like my inner world, horizontally is the external world, and the intersection of those two. But then there's like what technological devices can do by bringing in this third party outside source to come in and kind of disrupt us from the present moment and from our alignment, man, all of a sudden we get thrown out of whack. And so I think too, to that point of how do I know if I'm on the right track? Do I even have boundaries to protect me from getting thrown off course? So one of the boundaries for me is I cannot check my phone until I have done my full morning routine. Because if I start seeing texts coming in, phone calls coming in, I actually have my phone in airplane mode for about the first 2 hours of the morning. Because once I start being aware of the external world, man, it's really, really hard for me to be present, much less so kind of complete the process of getting aligned every day. And so how do I know if I'm on the right track? And actually, this speaks to a quote that I saw earlier today. This is a quote by Steve Jobs. There are measures of focus, and one of them is how often you say no. So to this point of how do I know if I'm on the right track? Well, how often am I saying no? Am I actually consistently using kind of like my voice to establish a boundary and keep me hedged in and keep me safe and keep me on the right path? Am I having these kind of protective mechanisms set in place to ensure that, man, like I'm going to keep myself safe. I'm going to keep myself on the straight and narrow path. I think of it as like horses with blinders on. Like I've got my values that are so set in place. I know how I want to live, why I want to live that way. And then I also have boundaries, boundaries for me to honor, which is like that little rule of in the morning, I don't check my phone, because the second I do, man, I can get so thrown off of course, where I'm supposed to be here in this moment. For you, it might be taking care of your kids, getting people out the door for school, getting to work on time, working out. All of those things can get really disrupted the second we pick up our phone. So what is our boundary with the external world, especially when it's not physically here in our home? Because really anything that's outside of our inner world, it's like our first responsibility is our inner world. Our second responsibility, think of it as concentric circles. So inner world is the nucleus. The immediate family, what's going on within our four walls, is the second concentric circle. And then you kind of build out from there. And then social media and our phones and text messages and phone calls and anything that's not here is like, you can't see because I'm on mobile, but like it's way out there. And so when we start thinking that way, okay, well then what are the boundaries that I need to be putting in place to really keep me safe and keep me focused? So I'm just going to keep an eye here on the chat. I'm actually scrolling down and saving them so that I don't lose them. So let me save this. Okay. And then I'm just going to take a quick note. I just saw Flash Thompson says peace and love foremost. No doubts. Love overcomes. Oh. Uh-oh. I don't know how I just did that. Oops. That's funny. Well, I just did it again. Will Castro. That's so funny. Sweeney, good to see you. I love this. Just don't lose your path. Simple, strong-minded. Strong-minded, man. Isn't that so good? So another one of these things is, how do you know if you're on the right track? Well, do you have a strong mind? Cultivating a strong mind, this has really been kind of a theme for me over the last couple of weeks, specifically for those of you who are joining the morning show with A Course in Miracles, talking about a strong mind and really cultivating the ability and almost like mental fortitude to take a thought and pull it out and analyze it and say, is this in alignment with who I want to be? Taking an emotion, pulling it out. Is this in alignment with who I want to be and how I want to show up to the world? Am I able, with this thought and this emotion, which one needs to go? Do both need to go? Do both need to stay? Which is life-giving and which is actually depleting energy for me? Am I living according to who I know I can be? Living up to our potential is a whole other question than, am I just kind of meeting the baseline of, well, I don't want to be that way, but who do you want to be? Who can you be? And when we start thinking about it in that way, this question of how do you know if you're on the right track suddenly becomes big and luminous and exciting, because now it's no longer about simply doing as we're told. It's like, oh, but if I start having a big dream and a high standard for myself, man, the sky's the limit. So then the question becomes is, well, what is your standard for you? What is your own potential? What does, and a friend of mine actually said this to me 2 years ago. I said, who do you want to be? And he said, I want to be great. And I was like, like I actually, greatness was never really a word I had entertained. And just a couple weeks ago, I started listening to this book by Jim Collins called From Good to Great. And I read this book probably a couple years ago, and it's specifically about businesses, getting businesses from good companies to great companies. And as I was listening to this book, I just had this thought, and I was like, man, I get why he said he wants to be great, because I think I do too. But who is Christene Marie great versus Christene Marie good? And same goes for you, Sean H. Who is Sean H good versus who is Sean H great? Richard, Will Castro, Flash Thompson, Edgar. It's who's the version of you that you maybe don't want to be? Who's the version of you that's just kind of baseline, neutral? You're coming in, you're being good, you're a good version of yourself, but then who is the great version of you? And if you truly were, and actually someone, man, this is probably one of the most successful people I've ever spoken to. He came on. So I've got the Craft and Calling podcast, which is a community that I'm just starting. It hasn't been launched yet officially, but it's for men and women in the trades. And that's a podcast, and it's going to be a community. And then I just started this other show. Literally, I started it last night. So after I hop off of here, I'm going to go hop over there, called Foundation First. If you want to go hang out with me over there, I'd be happy to see you. And this gentleman comes on and he does this exercise with me. He did this exercise at a conference that he was speaking at with Ed Milet. And he had everybody close their eyes. And I actually did this on the conversation with him. So we all closed our eyes. He said, I want you to visualize you next to you. And so I visualized me next to me on my right. And he was like, I want you to look at your hair and your feet and your body, and you are the greatest version of you. And what are you wearing? And he just went deeper and deeper into this vision of like, who am I great? And I never really thought about that, but that's every single one of us. John Wisdom, Handsack. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Raymond, Dope, Sean H. Y'all, it's Christopher Adams. Every single one of us. What does it look like, sound like for you and I to move from good to great? And do we have clarity around what greatness looks like for you and for me? Because otherwise, how then could we ever attempt to live a great life if we don't even know what greatness looks like, sounds like, feels like for you and me? We don't actually have something crystallized and clear for us to go then step into. Again, it's going back to the targets in the bowling alley. Do we have clarity of our targets, of who we want to be, how we want to show up to the world, what greatness means, in order for us to then strive for that? Because if we don't know where we're going, we definitely cannot map how to get there. So this question of, how do I know if I'm on the right track? How do you know if you're on the right track? Do we even know what the end destination is? And the end destination ideally is going to be way better than we ever dreamed or hoped. But are we even shooting high enough to begin with? Guys, I have this. Oh, no, here's my phone. Hold on. I have this quote on the background of my phone. This is by 𝐤𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲, who sculpted David. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. So for every single one of us tonight, I just want to challenge us. Are we actually dreaming big enough? Are we actually aiming high enough? Because I don't want to end this life and realize, oh my gosh, I had way more that I could have given and I just had no idea. And so to that point of, do I even know what I'm capable of to begin with? So much of that actually starts with a self-audit, actually taking time to sit with myself, you sitting with yourself and analyze, all right, like what is my own potential? What does greatness mean? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And so with that, I do have to go do another I do have to go do another show. Um, but I just want to go ahead and jump here in the chat really fast. Um, John Graham, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Y'all, this is why we're here. This is why these shows every single night. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes it's just us in the chat chatting. Sometimes it's like, man, there's really something called to be discussed. And we're better together. We really, really are. And the quality of our lives so often is a question of the quality of our inputs. Who are we allowing to come in and feed our minds, our souls, our spirits? And am I intentionally taking the time to feed my own? Which means so often taking the time quietly in the morning without anybody else saying anything and just journaling. What do I have to say to me to begin with? Because, man, when we can start becoming sourced from within, internally sourced, rather than relying on everyone else to tell us how to think, how to show up, what to believe, man, there's so much. There's something about that makes us feel the sense of ownership over our lives because we're starting to be led from within. That is the very definition at its core root of intuition, is to be taught from within. And that's the goal, is that we're actually taking the time to be internally sourced, to know, what do I think? What do I believe? What does greatness mean for me? And then go after that with a fervor and a passion, along with every other person here in this room. Foundation First Marketing is the name. This is the first time, y'all, that I've ever that I'm going live on this platform. I went live for the first time last night, and this is the first time that I'm really actually cultivating a personal brand. It's just been conversations around emotional intelligence, and I've talked a little bit about a business on here, but this is the place where I'm going to go hop over there. I would love to have you over there. We're going to be talking a lot more just about business. And last night I was talking about what does it look like to have a family business, transfer ownership from different generations. So very different conversations than we're having here, but I would love to have you. Frankly, I'm like, I just started the channel last night, so I think I have 3 subscribers. So feel free to hop over there. I would love that. But otherwise, I will either see you over there here in just a few minutes, because I'm going to hop over and go live on foundationfirstmarketing.com. No, YouTube, not .com. I'm going to go hop over there, or I will see you tomorrow morning. I'll probably go live around 10:30 a.m. Eastern for A Course in Miracles tomorrow. And then tomorrow night, I'll probably actually be going live around this time for the Knowing Show. So with that, thank you all so, so much. I love what you said here, Edgar. Greatness comes from hard work, discipline, dedication, knowledge, good habits, perseverance. And I love that you said networking. Yes. Y'all, I put here in the description of the show, it's just a form if you guys want to tell me where you live. I host events virtually and in person, and would love, love, love to meet you. My prayer and hope and mission for Knowing is to make it be so much bigger than just this, where, in the chat here, it's hard to really, truly connect. And my goal is that we'll turn it into an online community and do in-person events and actually really get to know each other and really do life together, especially with what's going on in the world. It's just like there's a lot of crazy stuff, and would love to really, really get you connected with each other and with me and all of us. There's so much that each one of us brings to the table. So with Knowing, this is a big kind of global dream that I have. And I'm excited. This is such the early stages, and I'm grateful for each one of you showing up and sharing and telling me how to grow and be better myself, because everything that you guys are saying in here, like even just honestly, Edgar, what you said about greatness comes from discipline. Discipline is something I'm really focusing on this year. Discipline is an area that I need to grow in, of like doing the same thing every day and habituating the pursuit of greatness. So the habituation of greatness is my goal for 2026. But with that, I'm going to hop over to Foundation First Marketing. I dropped the link here. If you guys want to come join me, I'd be so happy. I was a little lonely last night. But otherwise, I will see you tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern for A Course in Miracles. Have a wonderful night, y'all. I'll talk to you soon.